I am continuing in my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am continuing reading in a chronological order, according to event, not according to publication or volume, so I'm skipping around a bit as I move along. As I was going through my final few videos and getting my schedule, I realized I skipped a section of the Doctrine and Covenants for my chronology, and that is section 134. Now, I read section 133 when it fell into chronology, but I missed section 134. It was at the time that things were starting to get kind of hectic for me, and I had to slow down, and things were just not quite right, and so I missed it. So we're going to go back to it now. And this should have been read immediately after section 107 and just before 108. That's where it actually falls in the timeline. This is back now. We've been reading in the 40s. We're in Nauvoo, but now we're going to step back to Kirtland. 1835, about a year before the Kirtland Temple is dedicated. Now, before I continue, I will mention they are mowing the lawn outside my building right now. It's not too loud, but you will probably hear it in the background. Now, in 1835, the Saints had been driven out of Independence. They were in Clay County. I believe it's in 1836 that Caldwell County is formed and the Saints all start gathering there. So right now they're still in exile in Clay County and some of the surrounding areas. They did publish the Book of Commandments, but many of the revelations that had been planned for that publication were lost in the persecutions and Independence. Now they are publishing the Doctrine and Covenants. This is the collection here is going to be 100 revelations, and they are going through kind of selecting what revelations to include. There are a number of meetings of the church leaders, but now they have collected up, they've got their 100 revelations. There's also the preface, which we have as section 1, and a epilogue, which we have, I believe, as section 133. And it is during this process of planning and setting up the Doctrine and Covenants that we get section 134. Now, the heading states this: a declaration of belief regarding governments and laws in general, adopted by unanimous vote at a General Assembly of the Church held at Kirtland, Ohio, August 17, 1835, recorded in History of the Church, Volume 2, pages 247 to 249. The occasion was a meeting of church leaders brought together to consider the proposed contents of the first edition of the Doctrine and Covenants. At that time, this declaration was given the following preamble: that our belief with regard to earthly governments and laws in general may not be misinterpreted nor misunderstood. We have thought proper to present at the close of this volume our opinion concerning the same. A lot of the justification that the mob gave in Missouri for driving them out of Independence was a claim that they were upsetting the government of not only the county and town, but of the state, particularly on the slave issue. And so they are writing this declaration to make it clear that they never had any intent of opposing the legal authorities. Now, note also that this does not state it was a revelation given to Joseph Smith. It was not a revelation, and it was not written by Joseph Smith. It was written by the committee that had been appointed to assemble the Doctrine and Covenants. It was approved by Joseph Smith. He did accept and he did vote to have it added as a final appendix to the volume of the Doctrine and Covenants. But it was not written by him, nor is it considered a direct revelation. It is still Scripture. It is still Scripture, but it is not like the other sections of the Doctrine and Covenants. Most of them are God telling Joseph Smith something. He's giving a message. He's revealing something. Some are letters from Joseph Smith. But this one is a declaration written by the saints, by the leaders of the church, but it is accepted by God and is thus made Scripture. It is only 12 verses long, 2 pages, but we're going to read the whole thing together, and then we'll talk about it. So, section 134. We believe that governments were instituted of God for the benefit of man, and that he holds men accountable for their acts in relation to them, both in making laws and administering them for the good and safety of society. We believe that no government can exist in peace except such laws are framed and held inviolate as will secure to each individual the free exercise of conscience, the right and control of property, and the protection of life. We believe that all governments necessarily require civil officers and magistrates to enforce the laws of the same, and that such as will administer the law in equity and justice should be sought for and upheld by the voice of the people, if a republic, or the will of the sovereign. We believe that religion is instituted of God, and that men are amenable to Him, and to Him only, for the exercise of it, unless their religious opinions prompt them to infringe upon the rights and liberties of others. But we do not believe that human law has a right to interfere in prescribing rules of worship to bind the consciences of men, nor dictate forms for public or private devotion, that the civil magistrate should restrain crime, but never control conscience, should punish guilt, but never suppress the freedom of the soul. We believe that all men are bound to sustain and uphold the respective governments in which they reside, while protected in their inherent and inalienable rights by the laws of such governments, and that sedition and rebellion are unbecoming every citizen thus protected and should be punished accordingly, and that all governments have a right to enact such laws as in their own judgments are best calculated to secure the public interest, at the same time, however, holding sacred the freedom of conscience. We believe that every man should be honored in his station, rulers and magistrates as such, being placed for the protection of the innocent and the punishment of the guilty, and that in the laws all men show respect and deference, as without them peace and harmony would be supplanted by anarchy and terror. Human laws being instituted for the express purpose of regulating our interests as individuals and nations between man, and divine laws given of heaven prescribing rules on spiritual concerns, for faith and worship, both to be answered by man to his Maker. We believe that rulers, states, and governments have a right and are bound to enact laws for the protection of all citizens and the free exercise of their religious belief. But we do not believe that they have a right in justice to deprive citizens of this privilege, or proscribe them in their opinions, so long as a regard and reverence are shown to the laws, and such religious opinions do not justify sedition nor conspiracy. We believe that the commission of crime should be punished according to the nature of the offense, that murder, treason, robbery, theft, and the breach of the general peace in all respects should be punished according to their criminality and their tendency to evil among men, by the laws of that government in which the offense is committed. And for the public peace and tranquility, all men should step forward and use their ability in bringing offenders against good laws to punishment. We do not believe it just to mingle religious influence with civil government, whereby one religious society is fostered and another prescribed in its spiritual privileges and the individual rights of its members as citizens denied. We believe that all religious societies have a right to deal with their members for disorderly conduct, according to the rules and regulations of such societies, provided that such dealings be for fellowship and good standing. But we do not believe that any religious society has authority to try men on the right of property or life, to take from them this world's goods, or to put them in jeopardy of either life or limb, or to inflict any physical punishment upon them. They can only excommunicate them from their society and withdraw from them their fellowship. We believe that all men should appeal to the civil law for redress of all wrongs and grievances where personal abuse is afflicted or right of property or character infringed, where such laws exist as will protect the same. But we believe that all men are justified in defending themselves, their friends, and property, and the government from the unlawful assaults and encroachments of all persons in times of exigency, where immediate appeal cannot be made to the laws and relief afforded. We believe it just to preach the gospel to the nations of the earth and warn the righteous to save themselves from the corruption of the world. But we do not believe it right to interfere with bondservants, neither preach the gospel to nor baptize them contrary to the will and wish of their masters, nor to meddle with or influence them in the least to cause them to be dissatisfied with their situations in this life, thereby jeopardizing the lives of men. Such interference we believe to be unlawful and unjust, and dangerous to the peace of every government allowing human beings to be held in servitude. Kind of get the feeling I should have paused a little bit in there, but there's some basic overarching or underlying principles here. Now notice each verse starts with either we believe or we do not believe. These are each verse is a declaration or article of faith regarding government. Now, in what we have today as the Articles of Faith, Article of Faith 12, summarizes this entire thing. We believe in being subject to kings, rulers, and magistrates, in honoring, obeying, and sustaining the law. I probably got that a bit wrong, but you get the idea. That's really what this is saying. This is just saying this in more detail because they are addressing some of the accusations that have been made against the church. Now note, this is my favorite one here, is just verse 2. Free exercise of conscience, the right and control of property, and the protection of life. This is the Declaration of Independence. All men have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life, liberty, that is the free exercise of conscience, and the pursuit of happiness, which is also equated with the ownership and control of property. It's the same principles on which the revolution and the founding of this nation, of the United States, is based on. They are affirming that foundation. And the rest of it is going into detail on some specifics. We need laws because laws create order and peace. Without laws, you have anarchy and terror. Those laws must be upheld by good, just men who will not show favoritism. But they note the difference between the law, the governmental laws are there to regulate actions between people and nations. That's what the government is there to do. The laws of God, or the laws of heaven, are there to regulate spiritual, moral matters. The government can only regulate action. They should not regulate anything else. If somebody commits an act, such as murder or robbery, then the laws of the government step in and punish the guilty. But until an act is committed, no earthly government should have authority to punish or regulate. It only has the authority in all justice. If we are in a truly free and just society, the government will only regulate action directly, and only action between people and between nations. It does not regulate. A good, just government does not regulate the actions of a person against nature. If I own property, then my actions towards that property is my liberty. Government should have no say in that. Government should only have a say if my actions encroach on the freedom, on the liberty of another. That's earthly government, is to maintain liberty. That's its purpose. But note the last statement there is directly talking about slavery. We do not believe in interfering in the lawful servitude. In any country where slavery is legal, we do not interfere because it is legal. It is part of the government. That was the main accusation in Missouri. And they say no. And this is in the Bible too. You do not encourage slaves to rise up against their masters. You do not encourage any kind of violence against them. Sorry, they just started weed whacking, which is a lot louder than their lawnmower. So I'm going to leave it here, and I will see you in the next one. Should be section 129. So see you there.